today on the food plan, I'm going to be showing you how to make a spiced red wine apple pie. So this apple pie is just a basic apple pie. You just stew some apples and put it in some pastry in a pie shape and cook it in the oven. So for the red wine bit, that's the more interesting bit because wine usually isn't vegan because of the way they make it. So what you want to do is find a vegan wine. So I've got one here. This is Brown Brothers. This is an Australian brand of vegan wine. So you'll know it's vegan because it's always marked on the bottle if it is vegan friendly. So just get yourself some vegan wine. You really do need wine for this particular recipe because that's a big part of the flavour. The sweetness, the flavours, the colour, all of that goes together with this. So just get a good vegan red wine and that's about all there is to it. So let's get started. Okay, so to start, get a large size pot, put it on a medium heat and put in 2 cups of red wine and add to that 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Also put in 1 teaspoon of lemon rind, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. Alright, let's combine this. Alright, that's combined. So the sugar is basically dissolved. So now put in 5 large red apples sliced up. So that's about 1 kilo of apples. Right, cover this and bring it to the boil. Right, that's boiling now, so turn this down to a low heat and just recover it and leave it to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. You want the apples to be soft enough to break through easily, but not to go mushy. So 10 minutes should do it, but 15 minutes if you need it. Alright, so while we wait for that to finish cooking, we'll make the pastry. So start with 2 cups of plain flour and put in 3/4 of a cup of solidified coconut oil. So obviously make sure it's solid, so this works out nicely. Alright, and just combine that in a low speed. Okay, what you want to do now is add water, cold water, a tablespoon at a time until it forms a dough. So it shouldn't take more than 3 tablespoons. So just a tablespoon at a time until you get a dough. Alright, that's about what we're going for there. Okay, you can just leave this to the side in the fridge until the apples are ready. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes on those apples, so you can take that off the heat now and just strain them out. Alright, so return that liquid to the pot. Alright, so these apples need to be fairly cool before you put them into the pastry. So you can either leave them to cool or you can just put this into the freezer for a bit. Okay, so now for the pastry bit. So take the dough, take aside 1/4 and put this into the freezer right now. With the remaining 3/4, just roll this out as flat as you can get it. This pastry is really short, so it will break apart quite a lot, but we just need it into flat sort of workable pieces. Alright, that pastry is about as flat as you're going to get it. So what you need to do now is take a pie tin, so this one's about 30 centimeters across, oil it well, and take portions of the pastry as big a size as you can sort of get, and sort of lay them out flat into the tin and up onto the sides, and then you just need to press them into each other so it forms a crust. Okay, so I've got the pastry on there. It's all even out. Look out for any sort of thin spots, make sure those are all covered up. Alright, take the apples out of the freezer now and put them in, they should be cold. Alright. And then finish up by taking that ball of dough out of the freezer and just grate it over the whole top. So that's about that there. Kind of looks like a pizza, but anyway. Put this in a 200-degree oven for 20 minutes. Okay, while you wait for the pie to cook in the oven, back with that syrup that's left over from the apples, put that onto a high heat and add in 1/4 cup of coconut sugar. And just continue stirring this until it thickens up into a syrup. So you want to be able to, want it nice and sort of thick. So it shouldn't take too long, but just keep going until you're there. Alright, so that's about the consistency you're going for. So fairly syrupy, still a little bit runny. So you can just take it off the heat now and let it cool down. Okay, so that pie is finished cooking. I'm taking it out of the oven now. So as you can see, it's kind of dry. So take that sauce and put aside and just sort of spoon it over the top. Just as much as you think it needs. You may not need all of it, because I've ended up with around 1 cup of the sauce here. That's probably too much. So just put some on. That's probably about enough sauce. It's coming up the sides a very tiny bit. So I used about 1/2 cup of that syrup that we made. The rest of it you can just put aside and put extra on if you want it, but that's about it. So you can leave this to soak that sauce and cool down before you remove it. So about 5 minutes. So there is the spiced red wine apple pie finished here. So you can see here the sauce that we put in is sort of soaked in, given it a bit of the moisture that it needed. Colour looks nice unique sort of colour, nice strong red wine sort of flavour. The crust hasn't gone golden brown because we haven't used sugar or butter or anything like that in it, but makes for a more interesting, different sort of colour. Pastry is really short, so just be careful when you're cutting it, it breaks apart fairly easily. But in all, it's made a fairly decent looking pie, so that's about all there is to it. So enjoy.